Okay, so what you see here behind me is a silt fence. It's used in construction to collect runoff in the form of loose soil particles that get eroded off when water sheets down off of a newly graded surface like my drive here that I was so proud of talking about on the last video. So what happened is I got my drive all graded, super nice, and in the process, you know, you're using the skid steer to cut with your blade, similar to a bulldozer, and you're churning up all of your topsoil and your dirt, and you're loosening it up. And I was doing all that in a race against Mother Nature because it was forecast to drop some serious rain the next day. So I was all enthused about the fact that I was able to get my work done in time before it rained, which I did. The problem is I've got a neighbor to the south of me that has a large pond on their property behind their house, which this creek that is behind the silt fence here gathers all of the water from the properties north of him, including mine, and channels it down into his lake. Usually that's not a problem. It raises and lowers, he said. But what he didn't like was the fact that all of the freshly turned over dirt that I created on my drive grading project brought all of this new dirt into his lake via the stream. And he didn't like that. And I don't blame him. And I should have thought of that. And that's something I have to get used to in this process. You know, you would like to think that if you've got 20 acres of land, you can do whatever you want to on your land. Well, it's a lot like the theory of liberty. You know, my liberty ends at the end of my fist and the beginning of your nose. You know, as long as what I do doesn't impact my neighbor, then yeah, I'm free to do what I want, I guess. But if it drains topsoil into his pond and makes it look like a mud bath down there, then it's my fault, and it was my fault. And so I had a nice talk with him this morning, and we walked the property here along my drive and determined that this was the best place to mitigate and put in measures to control that runoff, because the first big rain is where you get the most runoff from the loose sediment on top, but then the subsequent rains after that you'll see less and less, but you'll still see it. So he appreciated me being willing to put all this in, and it's not just a matter of driving these stakes in the ground and running them along here. You've got to dig a trench, of which we're well versed in here now, about 3 to 4 inches deep, and then you run the bottom of that black fabric in a kind of a little gutter down there, and then you backfill soil on that, so it doesn't, so that the bad soil doesn't just run underneath your fencing. So as usual, lesson learned, another day at the property.